and Joe know all there is to know, from masterpieces to deep fried tacos. And if the movie sucks, you might hear them say, there's no telling where the guys will take you. Get ready for a spoiler. Won't say it twice, cause we already warned you. Better watch out, it's gonna ruin the plot. Real spoilers. Real spoilers. Real spoilers.
Broadcasting from the lush but not lavish studios located in the basement of the O'Keefe Institute for Advanced Film Snarkitude, this is Real Spoilers, episode 692, Rescue Chippendaled Rangers, something or other.
Sure.
Yeah. So,
Is the movie just called Rescue Rangers?
I think it's Chippendale
That was the show.
Rescue Rangers.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't even sure.
They should not have put Rescue Rangers in the title of this film.
Oh, why is that?
If you grew up watching Rescue Rangers, you might accidentally think this movie's going to have something to do with the Rescue Rangers. If I loved Rescue Rangers, and I mean, I was like 45 when that was on TV. So, but if I loved Rescue Rangers, something thereabouts,
35.
But if I loved Rescue Rangers and I went to this movie, I would have thought that like, oh, I'm gonna get some sort of a Rescue Rangers movie, and that is not what this is.
I see. We'll get into it, I do think there are some clever things surrounding that.
There are lots of clever things in the movie, but I just think that maybe that shouldn't have been the title of the film.
It's interesting. Yeah, I can see it.
So what if they called it Chippendale Real Life Rescue Rangers? How would that have been?
Nope, you're fired.
Now I'm going to think it's a reality show.
the real Chippendales.
Like they've teamed up with like the Forest Rangers and Grand Canyon or something.
And the Power Rangers.
Yeah.
I mean, the way things are going with the metaverses and multiverses.
Why not?
Any Rangers.
Yeah. So before we dig in, let's go around the table and everyone can introduce themselves.
This is Kevin.
And this is Tom. And we have a guest joining us today from NostalgiaCast, Darin Lundberg. Hey, Darin, how's it going?
Good. How are you guys?
Doing good.
We're always doing good when Joe's not here. So,
well, you are. You don't have to do the synopsises.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Somehow I've avoided that. Yeah. They had me do it like twice, and it was so bad. It was like never again.
Tom was like, "All right, I will totally memorize this." Wikipedia.com.
Yes. Yeah, that's like the first time I did okay because there was a thorough plot synopsis on Wikipedia.
Oh right.
And the next time it was one of those ones where it was
one sentence.
The one sentence. It's a movie nobody cared about, and they were just like two people met and fell in love, and I'm just like, well, crap. And so, but before we kick everything off, shameless plugs. Don't forget we're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. You can find us while you're there. Be sure and follow us so you never miss an episode. Maybe leave us a review. That's always appreciated. You can also find us on Facebook, facebook.com/Real Spoilers. While you're there, like the page, join the group. The group has been called the League of Show Sharers because we're hoping you'll share an episode. And people who were kind enough to share an episode this week include Julianne Jordan, Ralph Tribble, Librarian Cynthia, Glenn Cougar Mellenbrewer, Brendan McGuckin, Travis Tewitt, Lane Levanway, Laura Connolly Quiddick, Heather Sachs, Chris Williams, Lynn Cooper, Spoiler Piece Theater, Kevin Brackett, because he wasn't on last week's episode.
Oh, yeah.
Navigating that Brad Hyan role. B. Garner, Cinema Recall, Nguyen Lee, Ronnie Castle, In Session Film, Ryan Terry from the Force of Crowd podcast, Minorities Report, Binge Movies, Feel and Film, Vertigay 314, Geek to Me Radio, and Mike, and Oscar. So thank you very much, guys and gals, and all points in between, for sharing the episode. We greatly appreciate it. And finally, don't forget we do have a Patreon. If sharing an episode isn't enough for you and you just feel compelled to help out a little bit more, we feel compelled to let you. It's patreon.com/Real Spoilers, where for $5 a month, you get all sorts of bonus content, and you get liked a little extra.
And lately, the last couple of Patreon series have been between Joe and Matt F. Bosler. And
yes,
they are a riot. So seriously, if you're considering supporting the show, getting onto the Patreon, there's a lot of bonus stuff with me and Joe going back and doing movie commentaries and all this stuff over the years. But this latest stuff they're doing, and if you've heard any of the episodes lately, like Multiverse of Madness had Matt F. Bosler on there.
Yeah.
He's just got a completely different style of humor that is so hilarious and out there. And so they've been watching all these different horror movies. And so lately it's the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And there's 4 episodes full of them figuring out the timelines. And that's one of those with all the reboots and the requels, but they erase things and they put things back together.
So anyway, there's all that. Chippendale.
So speaking of nostalgia casts of sorts, let's let our guests go first. What is your relationship, if anything, with Chippendale / and or Rescue Rangers?
Well, I was asking my wife about it because I remember, what was it, like Darkwing Duck? It's like a block of them that they had.
The Saturday morning, and there's some homage.
DuckTales, Darkwing Duck.
Gargoyles maybe was
I
part
think
of
that
them.
was one. Yeah.
But it's that Saturday morning lineup, and it was one of those.
Well, no, it was an afternoon block. It ran in the afternoons on local syndicate.
Oh, but they redid them, but then they moved them. They were also part of the Saturday morning.
Yeah, I think it was living in both spaces.
Yeah, exactly.
But they were afternoon shows that they had this block of cartoons in the afternoon on WB.
Yeah.
And that's, because that's where also Animaniacs was, stuff like that. So,
but this wasn't, but so this was to compete with WB, you're saying?
I think so.
This is Disney. So
yeah, but I think it was syndicated because they didn't own ABC yet.
Oh,
so,
okay. I see what you're saying.
So
it
was a syndicated package that was sold. And I think a lot of places would buy them both.
Okay.
Yeah, so it would be on the afternoons, or like Transformers or He-Man or like all those cartoons they would play in the afternoon, or they'd play Saturday morning. So it was just all over, just depending on, I guess, the syndication. But as far as Chippendale goes, I didn't watch it religiously, but I'm familiar enough that I know all the characters' names.
Okay.
And it was kind of a rush seeing them in the like an endorphin kind of build, kind of watching them in the movie here. But it's nice having Disney Plus because as soon as the movie ends, it recommends Chippendale's Rescue Rangers as a cartoon. So we switched over to that and we watched a few episodes, especially the one that I can't remember the cop character mentions.
Ellie,
Ellie. Like, so we watched that one. We watched a few others, and so it was just fun doing all that. But yeah, I don't remember specific episodes. I just remember that it was on. It was part of my childhood, and when it was on and there's nothing else to watch, I did catch a few of those.
So I looked up the history of this. So it started as a Disney Channel show, and then it entered national syndication. It aired in afternoons alongside DuckTales, and that would have been on Fox on
Fox. Okay.
Yeah. And then you had Tailspin, which was based on Jungle Book characters, and that was the Disney afternoon lineup.
So with Rescue Rangers, and you watch the episode, so basically it's like a 22-minute show, and every episode was self-contained, right? They didn't really have plots that carried forward. I mean, it was just like there was some kind of a mystery, or they were trying to get to the bottom of some kind of a mystery or rescue someone, and then it was over, right? It was just like a really quick little story from what you watched, Darin?
Yeah, just little jokes and things. And obviously the character like development, but not really developments, but the character like quirks and stuff would carry over. But yeah, it wasn't really, there was no like long, I guess there was one episode, I can't remember what it was called, but it was like 6 parts. Maybe that was
sometimes they did. Yeah. Okay. So really with this movie, what I really like about it, and I know Tom was touching on, like, if you're going to say this is a Rescue Rangers movie, it's not really like you're taking a 20-minute Rescue Rangers episode or that 6-part, 6 of the episodes and putting them together and making a movie on their adventures. It's really a jumping off point. Yeah. But I think what's really clever about it is this world, which is very much in like a spiritual successor to Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Absolutely.
Where you've got toons in the real world. It's a live action animated hybrid. And what I really liked is that all the toons in the real world are like working employees. They're actors.
Right.
So
the personalities that we know them as is not the personality that they are not the personalities that they actually possess.
Yeah. And so Chip and Dale are real chipmunks in this world, but
they're real animated chipmunks. They're still cartoons.
Well, right. But I mean, they're not just characters in a show. They exist. Chip and Dale are,
and like they don't talk like that because that's a shtick.
Yeah.
In the same way that, like, I don't know, when you meet Bobcat Goldthwait, he doesn't really talk like that.
Right. Or Larry the Cable Guy.
Yeah.
Right? It's a character. Sorry to break it to anyone who's a big Larry the Cable Guy fan. So Chip,
pretty sure they don't listen to us.
So I really liked the fact that they took Chip and Dale as these actors, these cartoon actors, were on this famous TV show, Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, and then stuff happened that they parted ways and went about their lives and grew up in different directions. But that's really the most Rescue Rangers you get, right? So it's like they were on this show together, and then the band broke up and they went their separate ways. So in the way that Tom was saying, yes, it's like you're not really getting a film adaptation of the show, but on the other hand, I think that's really clever, the way they made all the Toons actors, the way that they made it like these TV shows really existed, which means all these other movies, when you're talking about the different Disney movies we see throughout the film, those are movies, and the stars of them like are human actors or in human live action movies.
Right.
Those Toons are real actors in those movies. So I thought it was a clever way to bring in real world stuff, but explain how they exist in a movie that we're watching. And they're all movies.
I like the premise of it. Like
Yeah.
I just think that I think the title's a little misleading. But
I gotcha. But in the end, I think it kind of comes back around though, because the mystery and the adventure they go on is kind of like a Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers mystery. I mean, they're trying to solve who's kidnapping their friends, and there's a bad guy who literally becomes, toward the end, he literally becomes the bad guy from the TV series. That cat is the bad guy from the show.
That
and
cat,
when whenever he goes through the machine, because if you've seen the trailer or seen the stills, you'll notice that one of the chipmunks is a 2D animation, one is a CG animation that looks kind of like the Alvin and the Chipmunks live action with Jason Lee, that one. And so the reason they do that is there's CGI surgery that they can have. And so later on in the movie, the bad guy is going to go through this machine, and they're going to get all these different parts, like a Wreck-It Ralph arm and a different leg from a different character, and this big amalgam. And the head is the bad guy cat from the Rescue Rangers show, if you didn't pick up on that. So,
no, I didn't. I was just like, that's supposed to be Puss in Boots?
Right?
Like,
that's like, that is the bad guy from the show. So it's funny that it doesn't start off as being an adaptation, and they are just actors, but in a way, it does turn into an episode of Rescue Rangers without you really thinking about it too much. They are going on this adventure. They face the bad guy that they had to face in their show and all that stuff. So I do think it was really clever and fresh, the take on what they did with it. And this movie, some people are really cynical about it, and I want to hear where you guys land. I've got a lot of people online that are kind of giving it backlash and saying, is this all we're doing now? Is every movie just references and nostalgia? And I do think that's too cynical of a take. From my perspective, I think a lot of love went into this movie. I think the writer and director of the film, and this is 2/3 of The Lonely Island. It's
Right.
Akiva Schaffer is the director and co-writer. And
So I guess it wasn't the third that writes songs?
Oh, that's kind of funny. I think they
Like,
all write songs. But
I
it's not
I was really caught off guard because I knew it was, Lonely Island adjacent, that there was really no songs. in this
no,
movie.
and just the one.
the
which,
one song, the whole point of the song is that it's not good.
Yeah,
right?
but it was so Lonely Island in spirit too, though,
Yeah.
because Lonely Island, their songs always flip the concept on its head, right?
Right.
There's no straight up Lonely Island songs. They're doing a song and it's catchy and it's got a beat and then it goes off the rails and it's crazy, right?
Right.
And so like they'll be, I walked into a bar and did whatever, and then all of a sudden it's the Jizz in My Pants song.
Right.
You don't expect that. It comes out of left field. And so
no, if you expected it, you wouldn't be doing it.
right, exactly.
Yeah, that's
see?
the whole point of
I
just
know,
in your
right?
pants.
So you've got the Lonely Island crew here, and they're very clever. So Akiva is the director, and he directs most of their films that the Lonely Island works on. So Pop Star, Hot Rod, and then all their shorts. He's mostly the director of all the SNL digital shorts.
Yeah.
And then Andy Samberg, of course, plays Dale, and what's his face? John Mullaney is Chip. Which doesn't have to do with Lonely Island, but those are the main people involved with it.
But he was an SNL writer.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
so
they were all
together.
Yeah, exactly. So you've got this pedigree of people that are really funny, really clever, and they're not making stuff like if you know the Lonely Island, if you've seen those movies I talked about, they don't make cash grab movies. They don't just make they're not just guns for hire. They started, the Lonely Island started as one of the original YouTubers.
Yeah.
They were YouTubers. And that's how they got onto SNL, and the digital shorts were basically versions of their YouTube comedy videos that they made together. And so these guys aren't just doing cash grabs. They've all got plenty of money. They're doing projects that they want to do, and I think a lot of love went into this. If you see how much loving homage there is to different styles of animation, and they're pulling in 2D and stop motion animation and claymation and CGI, which is really detailed, and they're poking fun and making jokes about like deep cuts about different things in the industry, everything from the glassy Beowulf eyes, the dead eyes, and and they're just poking fun at all these different things that didn't work in the industry. So I think the people saying, I mean, I can't just blanket statement all of it, but I think for the most part, based on the comments, I'm thinking people saw it, didn't watch it, and go, oh, it's just a cheap meta cash grab. Because if you watch the film, there is a lot of heart, I think, into it and a lot of homage. So I don't know, where did you guys land? I guess, Tom, first of all.
I thought it was clever, thought it was cute. I didn't think it was very funny. And I didn't laugh very much during the movie. There was spent a lot of time going, well, that's clever. But
you didn't even at the shock of, I can't believe Disney let them make this movie, like you didn't laugh in like a nervous kind of a,
I mean, there's a lot of stuff in this movie I can't believe Disney let them do.
Yeah.
There's a lot. I mean, it is definitely like probably the ballsiest Disney movie ever made.
That's exactly what I said. I've never seen a Disney proper, like not Buena Vista, whatever. I said this is the ballsiest Disney proper movie they've ever made with their IP. I cannot believe they let them do the things.
I mean, they took one of their main legendary characters and made him a straight up villain.
Yeah.
So I give them credit for that, but I just thought I didn't laugh very much in the movie. Okay. And it was almost like they thought the concept was enough to make me laugh. There weren't actual jokes that went along with it for the most part. Okay. It wasn't like they were telling jokes that I was like, that's not a funny joke. It was just kind of like, I don't know. I felt like it needed to get punched up. Also, I didn't think John Mullaney was very good.
Really?
I thought he was really bad.
Oh,
I know this sounds weird to say for a Chippendale movie, but when it came time for there to be the dramatic moments, he was really bad at it. I felt like he threw away a lot of lines. Yeah. Like that could have been funnier, and I think John Mulaney's hilarious. I think he's one of the best stand-ups working, but I just did not think he was very good in this movie.
Interesting. Okay. I have a little bit of a different thought, but Darin, what was your overall take on the concept of this film?
Well, I liked it. I think I was writing to you that the parts that I laughed at, especially the part where all the Seth Rogen characters pop up on screen, and I laughed really, really hard at that. And I think, Kevin, I wrote to you, like, it's telling that I laughed more at the little in-jokes than anything to do with the actual plotting.
But the plot is so, I think, to your point, the plot really
is an in-joke.
Yeah, it's just so basic that really the movie does rely on the gags. If you took out all the gags, I mean, the plot is, just like this guy kidnapped. Well, I mean, there's a little bit more than that, but once you get past the plot, like, here's the plot real quick. We'll just say, here's the plot synopsis. Right. Chip and Dale are kids. They meet each other. They grow up. They're on TV shows together. They do Rescue Rangers. Dale is sick of being the goofball character getting hit on the head, so he takes another job, and Chip lets him walk away. They grow apart. None of their careers work out, and they're in the real world. And then their friend Monty from the Rescue Rangers show is kidnapped, and we find out that the bad guy, whoever is in charge of this, which ends up being Peter Pan, the Peter Pan from the classic Disney animated movie, is kidnapping famous cartoon characters, changing their, like, removing their mouths and changing their bodies different ways, and making bootleg videos so that they can sell them, like almost like those asylum knockoff
like
videos.
The ones I make fun of where I was like, it's not the Lion King, but your grandma doesn't know that.
Right. It's Transmorphers versus Transformers. And so it's a totally ridiculous idea. I could not believe that's a part that had me laughing out loud when they showed Flounder getting kidnapped, his mouth erased, and then giving him like goofy eyes and putting him on the DVD cover of the Smelly Fish Lady or whatever. Yeah. Like, I was laughing hysterically because I could not believe Disney let them take their IP, their famous Disney Renaissance, like their moneymakers, and let them do these things with it. Like, to me, that was so funny that it existed.
I couldn't believe that DreamWorks let them.
Yeah. Now, that's my question. So this movie, they were very tight-lipped about it. There weren't a lot of interviews, and any interviews that I heard were very vague about it, purposefully, and I'm glad, because it sucks. This movie came out on Friday, and the entire internet was just videos and screenshots in the movie, and I'm like, can you not let people just discover it? Like, I know that's the day and age we live in. I'm going to sound a million years old, because that's what kids do. They TikTok what they're watching and put it on, but I don't know, man. When I was watching it again, I was cracking up and in disbelief. And now everyone that sees it, if they waited more than a day, they're going to be seeing it because they know a lot of the gags, right? And so, Anyway, but I could not believe they let them do this. And my question, because of the interviews were so vague that they were doing, is this a parody type situation or a satire? Because, South Park makes fun of everyone. They put just, I think a season ago, they put Mickey Mouse and the Avengers and all that in there, and they're making fun of them, and it does not put them in a good light. They make Mickey into like an evil villain who's killing people and cursing and all that, but they're not getting Disney's permission. It's a commentary. It's a satire. So with this movie, I thought about it, and since we spoil, that's what we do. Don't listen any further if you don't want to know these gags, but like Ugly Sonic. Yeah. Okay. I'm of two minds. One, yeah, you're in a huge Disney movie that millions of people are going to see. You're putting a character in there for free. I'm sure that they don't have to pay or anything. Okay. But then you're basically making fun of their attempt to make a Sonic movie, and you're calling the character straight up on his posters at Comic-Con Ugly Sonic. So I'm like, would they sign off on that? And then my question is, do they need to sign off on it? Because that's a public thing that happened. Ugly Sonic came out. It changed the movie, the way they animated it. Does Disney need permission at that point?
Boy, I don't know. I get the argument you're making, and I did wonder the same thing, but I think at the end of the day, they probably do. Like, because
I heard at early test screenings of this that there were some different plot things. I'm in some other groups, and some people are in LA, and they've seen these screenings, and two things that changed. Well, one changed with Peter Pan's story. That doesn't really matter. But the second was they said SpongeBob was one of those Frankenstein monsters at the end that they save.
Right.
And we don't see SpongeBob. And I wonder if Nickelodeon was like, that's a step too far. What does Nickelodeon have now besides new shows that have one season and they get canceled?
Right.
SpongeBob is their guy.
Yeah.
And I wonder if they could...
Patrick, like you see his bottoms coming out of the cars.
And
that's right.
Okay, and Squidward, his name is on the Hollywood.
You see his name on the Hollywood Walk of Fame star.
But you never see anything with SpongeBob, and he was going to be some kind of Frankenstein thing, and I just wonder if that didn't get clearance. So, I mean, maybe
did they decide, or maybe they decided to hold back on it, and he's gonna, if they get a second one, he's got a bigger role.
That's interesting. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know the legalities. I think it's going to be interesting.
I think it would be a dangerous game for Disney to play, like, oh, I can pull in your characters and call it parody.
Right, because then what else could they do?
Because people go, well, okay, well, now we're going to do it to you, and when we get to court, we get to point to this movie and say, but you can't have it both ways.
That's a great point.
So I tend to think that even if they didn't need to, they probably did.
Yeah, okay, so maybe they did get the approval. And I gotta wonder too. So Ben Schwartz is one of my favorite comedians. He's a Disney guy. He was the voice of Louie. I don't know, the blue one, Louie, I think, in DuckTales, the reboot.
Right.
And he's the voice of Sonic.
Yeah.
I gotta wonder what Ben Schwartz thinks of this. I looked on his Twitter. He has not said one thing, and it's hard because Sonic 2 is the highest grossing video game movie of all time.
Right.
Sonic 1 used to be the highest grossing video game movie of all time. His movie property is making hundreds of millions, combined billions of dollars. The third one's been greenlit. That is one of the hugest properties Paramount has. He's got to be careful with what he says, because this movie is making fun of the character.
Right.
And their attempt, when he was originally signed up to voice that character, he looked like Ugly Sonic. But he's a Disney guy, so he's watching this movie, and he has friends that are working on it, and he knows Akiva Schaffer. Like, they're just all in the same, comedy and Disney and all that. So I don't know. I keep waiting for him to say something, but he doesn't, and that makes me think he's being really careful about it. He can't make fun of Sonic. He's making millions of dollars with Sonic. He can't make fun of it. He can't say, "Oh, that's great, Ugly Sonic." Like, he can't. He's Sonic.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's a weird thing, but I think that's hilarious. I think that is, seriously, they're doing things that South Park does.
Yeah.
And this is Disney. South Park is South Park, but Disney is literally taking characters, including ones from South Park, and making fun of them. Randy was in it. Stan Marsh's dad in South Park was in it. But DreamWorks, like you said, Seth Rogen has two characters. One is Kung Fu Panda. He plays a grasshopper.
Mantis, yeah.
Mantis, okay, thank you. And then the other one is that Monsters
from Monsters vs. Aliens.
Yeah, Monsters vs. Aliens. And so it's so funny. And then Beowulf, I don't remember if that was DreamWorks. It does look kind of like a...
I think that was a motion capture thing.
It is a motion capture, but...
That was Zemeckis. I don't think it was. It was probably Sony ImageWorks or something like that.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so you've got...
Well, then you see Shrek.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the body wash thing, which was a real
Shrek.
property. So you've got a lot of DreamWorks. And then that does beg the question, though. So you've got all these different properties in the movie, which to me, I think, no one's right now. I'm not saying no one likes these movies or anything. There are obviously lots of good characters from good movies in this, but who's talking about Beowulf? Who's talking about Monsters vs. Aliens? Now they are.
Yeah.
I mean, it's free advertising. Disney Plus has hundreds of millions of subscribers, and people are watching this, and now they're seeing Shrek. They're seeing Monsters vs. Aliens, and they're like, I remember that movie. Let me go check that out. Maybe I'll go buy it. Maybe I'll rent it. I think it really is mutually beneficial to allow a studio like Disney to be able to poke fun at things and use these characters, and they don't need to get paid for it because they're getting free advertisement, and it's bringing awareness to them. I don't know. I think it's cool that it happened.
I think a lot of it comes down to what the joke is, right?
True.
Like and because if the joke is too mean or points out a flaw that feels a little too real, like
Sonic,
it is going to damage it. But I think the ugly Sonic thing, like the studio knows that happened, and everybody knows that that's not what Sonic really ended up looking like.
And the fact that ugly Sonic existed, I think, and I've always been of the mind, made that movie way more popular. It got it way more free advertising than it ever would have. I think Sonic, and I love the first Sonic. I think it's great. It's a great video game adaptation, a really fun movie. I think it would have came and went. Sonic fans would have seen it and would have done okay.
Yeah.
But that ugly Sonic thing took over the internet.
Yeah.
And so that gave them so much free publicity. So you're right. They know what happened. Everyone knows it. But now they have a $1 billion brand to protect.
Right.
So it's a balancing act. And I will love to learn more about it.
Do you guys think, because talking about the legalities and everything, obviously when they made Who Framed Roger Rabbit, I think Spielberg trying to maneuver and, getting all the characters to show up like that were licensed by different companies. There's a bunch of like wrangling they had to do for that. But do you think talking about, kind of sparked something, talking about the humor here and especially mentioning that is this what it is? Everything's just nostalgia. Is it everybody just in on the joke? Because I know that, you guys talking about this, it's kind of a brazen for Disney to do all these, like especially how they melt down the Shrek shampoo plastic to make porta potties.
Right.
Like I thought that was like, whoa, like holy cow, that's a pretty deep dig. But do you think, but it's still, because that's what Shrek is, it's just potty humor. But do you think it's just because all these people are like, well, that's what it is, and it's people are going to like it, and it's funny, and so we'll go along with the joke because everybody gets it. You guys think that might have something to do with it while everybody's going along with it?
I think to some degree. I think also that these characters that have been created are so far removed from the people who created them at this point.
True.
That you don't necessarily have people defending them in quite the same way that they would have. Even when Roger Rabbit came out, there were still a lot of those creators were still alive.
Yeah.
Right? Where now they're not, or it was created on behalf of a corporation, and everybody who created Shrek knew what they were doing. Nobody created Shrek lovingly when they were 13 and had been drawing it for 20 years before it finally entered the mainstream. It was like, hey, we're doing a thing, and we need a green monster for Chris Farley to play.
Right.
And
Shrek certainly, that one specifically is such a crass version of fairy tale humor.
Right.
So if anyone's going to agree with it, the Shrek people.
And honestly, if you're one of the Shrek creators, you don't have the right to bitch about people making fun of your character. Especially that first Shrek movie, all it did was stick a finger in the eye of Disney.
Yeah,
that was its whole purpose for existence. Every joke in that movie practically came back to Disney.
Yeah.
So if for you then to turn around and go, wow, that's a bridge too far, go clutch your pearls somewhere else.
But I don't think Shrek would. I think to Darin's point, Shrek wouldn't be the one. But I think
anything, it's a tacit admission of the power of Shrek.
Yeah, definitely.
That now Disney is making fun of the character that rose to power by making fun of Disney.
Yeah. And so the thing that I thought was really interesting with one of the interviews, I guess you could call it, Akiva Schaffer was on. There's a podcast that I know a lot of people listen to called Comedy Bang Bang, and if you're a part of their Patreon type thing, which is their own deal, Comedy Bang Bang World, you get a different show. There's different episode of a new show that's exclusive every week. One of them is called Scott Hasn't Seen. And so Akiva was on the episode where they talked about The Emperor's New Groove, which is another great Disney movie that does not get enough credit.
Yeah.
That is such a funny, irreverent, meta type of movie. And he was on that episode, and he said, to get this movie greenlit, we came up with the idea. They gave us $250,000 to shoot some concepts and this and that. But he goes, this movie had to be approved by, at that time, Bob Iger. And he goes, not every movie has to go all the way up to get greenlit by Bob Iger, but this one has to be handled so delicately around all the IP and everything,
right,
that Iger himself had to approve it. And I think, okay, that's cool. And clearly it did. And credit to Bob Iger, because all the stuff you guys are saying, I agree with, people need to understand that, poking fun at him here and there, it really is good in the long run, and not to take it too seriously. But studio executives, a bunch of old guys making decisions on paper.
And the thing is too, is that like what you always have to look at something and go, well, what's the upside, right? Like, what's the upside if I do this and it doesn't work? Like, everybody's going to scream, how could you have ever thought this was a good idea?
Exactly.
Right? And so
it's the risk versus reward.
Totally.
Should I greenlight
if
this?
he just says no and this never gets off the launching pad, nobody's ever going to write an article about that. It's just going to be like, we had this crazy idea and it didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
And
there's no story there. It's just another idea.
So it does take some balls to greenlight a movie like this.
Yeah.
I will say, back to Roger Rabbit, like, if you go back and rewatch Roger Rabbit, because most of the characters you get in there are Disney Warner Brothers, right? Like, that was the big crossover merger thing.
And they had to have equal screen time.
Yeah, like, if you watch that thing, like, you can clock it. I mean, it's just like, if Donald Duck's on screen for 40 seconds, then Daffy Duck is on screen for 40 seconds.
They had to, neither one of them wanted to be the one that got less time, so they had to have it exactly the same. And you're right, so at least it was only 2 studios at that point, but this one is a whole, I've never seen anything.
They brought in some lesser, like, I think like
Betty Boop.
Betty
There's
Boop,
older ones.
Yeah,
right.
but nothing of I mean, no
those
offense,
ones
Betty,
they could get to the rights.
No
to.
offense, Betty Boop fans, but nothing of consequence.
But this one, I've never seen anything like it. The logistics of pulling in this many characters, and again, it's not just for the gags. I know the movie heavily relies on them, and that's what I was laughing at, and I was shocked at how they got them in. But again, they're pulling in all these different types, and they're being clever. They're not just putting them on screen and then showing them and taking them away. Like, they have purpose. They have, like, the Gumby. So there's a cop, police captain or detective, voiced by J.K. Simmons, who's great, and he keeps, like, things, he's claymation, and so he keeps either sitting on different characters or gum gets stuck to him and he has to pull it off or whatever. So they use all these different animation styles, and then if they were in the real world, how would that work? How would you have different interactions between humans, between other cartoons? Like we mentioned, they took Flounder and they literally took a pencil and erased his mouth and redrew him. So the animated character, like the 2D animation ones, they could edit more freely and easier. So I think a lot of care went into how will these different forms of animation be interact with the world. When you talk about CG, Pixar, there was a lot of Pixar stuff. There were cars, like, with the big eyes that would look like the movie Cars around the world. They showed regular cars driving. They showed cartoon cars, Roger Rabbit style car right in the beginning of the movie when Chip is going to school. And then you get the CG cars and how they all interact with each other. And then even the cartoon characters, some interact with live action stuff. How Dale is driving around with Chip, and they're both in the car, and they've got the seat like retrofitted so that little cartoon characters can drive it. And there's a big pole that goes down to the gas and a steering wheel extension. And Chip is like, you can just drive a cartoon car or whatever. And he's like, no, these are cool. And so they showed them interacting with the real life stuff and how that works. And I don't know, the way it all meshed together to me, I was watching people that love animation like I do. Like, I love all these different forms of animation. And these were people that clearly cared about the art, and they put it in there because they love these characters. They're not mean-spirited. This was not a making fun of. The Sonic thing was maybe the meanest, but like you said, everyone knows about it.
Right.
We can all laugh about it now. No one's saying, like, Sonic sucks, what a dumb character. They're like, yeah, can you believe, like, this was what they came up with. Like, we're all laughing about it. And they
actually, if anything, it ends up kind of humanizing Ugly Sonic, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like in this world, it was an actor that like lost a role. Right,
Yeah,
and he was almost a thing. Like he's Eric Stoltz from Back to the Future.
He is. Oh, that's a great. Oh,
in fact,
my
that's
gosh.
who they should have had voice it.
Oh, well, but it's Tim Robinson.
Yeah.
And do you watch? I Think You Should Leave on Netflix.
I have not.
It's crazy. Do you, Darin?
No.
Okay. Tim Robinson's a comedian, and he does a sketch show. I Think You Should Leave on Netflix. It just got renewed for I think a third season. Yeah. It's crazy. It's like, when we're saying, I can't believe they let these Disney characters do all this stuff with this IP, you watch that show and you're like, I can't believe they let him do some of this stuff. It's a irreverent, crass sketch show.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. But anyway, that's Tim Robinson. But I really like that too, Tom. When we're talking about clever ideas about taking Rescue Rangers and they're actually actors and everything, it's not like Sonic. Like in our world, they animated Sonic really weird, and you think, how did anyone approve this?
Right.
Why was this the thing? In their world, they hired an actor who was, their words, not mine, ugly.
Right.
And then they fired him for being ugly, and he is now doing the Comic-Con circuit. And you see he's doing video games. He's posing like Burt Reynolds in one thing. He's doing a black and white movie. He's got all his headshots like that you would sign at a Comic-Con, and it's him, the ugly Sonic. So like he is a working actor.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so funny because I would have never thought of that in our real world. I never would have thought that Ugly Sonic was like a guy that got fired.
Right.
We're like, yeah, they changed the animation, but it's so funny that in this world, just like a Roger Rabbit, toons are beings. They're toons. And so, yeah, that guy got fired. So it's sad. And Ugly Sonic ends up getting his kind of redemption, though. He ends up working for the FBI because I think he's doing like a Steven Seagal type thing. You know how he was a Texas Ranger or whatever and went around. At the end of the movie, he's working with the actual FBI because I think they're doing a show where Ugly Sonic is part of the FBI.
And it's funny, the Ugly Sonic thing makes me think of there's an actress who's known as Fake Jan. And so on the Brady Bunch, and she does the con circuit, and I'm always kind of like, somebody would really care enough. But the Brady Bunch, after it got canceled, they brought it back as a variety show, the Brady Bunch Variety Hour, and
I don't remember that one.
Yeah,
I know the show. But...
Yeah, I mean it lasted for like half a season. And it was when variety shows were really huge, and they got everybody back except Jan, and so they just recast her, and so
it's a Fresh Prince situation.
Yeah, and so everybody ended up referring to her as Fake Jan, and so and so she still goes to comic book conventions or celebrity autograph type conventions.
Yeah, she was part of that,
and positions herself as Fake Jan. Like
she
just owns it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, she owns it.
She owns it. She's Fake Jan. It's in the same way that, like, if Gilligan's Island had all the because they couldn't get Tina, whatever, I'm blanking on her last name, to come back and play Ginger.
Oh, right.
And so they had all these fake Gingers. They could never get Ginger back.
They really were the rest.
Yeah. Well, and if she wasn't the rest was Professor and
No,
Marianne.
I know, but the fake ones really were.
But so they always recasted her.
Yeah.
So,
oh my gosh. So yeah, I think it's really loving. Now, as far as the dynamic between the two actors, so I think in this movie, John Mulaney is Chip, Andy Samberg is Dale. I think John Mulaney's playing John Mulaney. I think Andy Samberg's playing Andy Samberg.
Yeah.
If you like those two actors, which you do, so I obviously
I just did not think Mulaney was very good. I
really liked them
Yeah.
together. I thought they did a great job. Like, I mean, Mulaney's playing the straight man against Dale is supposed to be this really goofy, like always causing trouble, and he was the punchline. He was a punching bag on the show, their version of our Rescue Rangers. And John Mulaney is the guy that is wearing suits and in his real life stand up and everything. So he's playing that kind of like tight, clenched straight man in this movie. And
I think one of the things, and I'm just now connecting that irritates me about that, is if you know anything about classic comedy teams, duos, the dumb one was almost always the smart one off screen. So like Costello was the brains of Abbott and Costello, and Jerry Lewis was the brains of Martin and Lewis, and
played the dumb characters.
They would play the dumb one on stage, but behind the scenes, they were the ones that really understood the business and really understood the dynamic, and the straight man was just kind of along for the ride.
So to your point earlier, with them being characters, like it would have really been a nice homage to those kind of duos, and had Dale actually have been smart.
Like, I'm not the goofy one, like right? Like it's like
now I have to live up. Everyone in real life thinks I'm an idiot,
right?
And that would have been a neat characterization for the
Somebody
movie.
on Twitter made the connection. There's a movie from 1988 called Without a Clue. It's with Ben Kingsley and Michael Caine. And how they twisted it, like Sherlock Holmes is the smart guy, but they made Michael Caine like the idiot.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah,
Watson the smart dude. So that's a good, clever connection.
Okay, I'm gonna have to check that out. So yeah, I could see that. I enjoyed it, but I think that would have been an interesting way to add a little bit more depth to the character.
Right.
Him trying to get out from under the shadow. So he wants to leave Rescue Rangers and do real work or theater or something and get it out from under that. That would have been interesting. But yeah, but tons of gags. Like there's, if you guys want to, because we can't, I'm sure, remember them or even have time to list them. But a friend online, David Lee, he has a YouTube channel, David Lee Down Under. He's in Australia, and he has a YouTube video with I think he lists 300 or whatever Easter eggs in Chip and Dale. It's a 30-minute video. But if you want to go through,
that's a lot.
Yeah, I mean
How do you assemble them so quickly?
I know. I think he got the advanced review copy and was taking notes or whatever.
Yeah.
He turned it around quick, but go watch that video. I was this morning when I was getting ready, I had it on and just to refresh myself on all of them. And he caught so much stuff. I mean, I didn't see half of the stuff that he sat there and studied. And so this is going to be a movie that I think is going to be really fun. I think we said the same thing about Ready Player One because there's so many different Easter eggs in that. It's an Easter egg movie, much like this one. And that's going to be one that will be really fun to go back and pause each scene and see what they did, because I think that also is what helps me appreciate this movie more, is knowing how much care went into it and the rewatchability of catching those things.
Yeah.
You looked at the left side of the screen the first time you watched it. Now you know what the character is doing. You're looking at the right, and there's 20 more people. They go to a Comic-Con convention, like we mentioned at the beginning of the movie. We see Ugly Sonic. We see Tigra. We see, who are the other Paul Rudd's in this movie.
I see Paul Rudd
as Ant-Man.
Yeah.
It's like originally Ant-Man was supposed to be Ant-Man, and then you see at the end of the movie all the movie covers and posters. You see like this Paul Rudd with all these old ladies around him, and Ant-Man is a huge hit. So like they got people like that in it, and then the voices. Seth Rogen plays all those characters. He plays the Beowulf one and the other characters we mentioned. Eric Bana plays Monterey Jack, the guy from Rescue Rangers that gets kidnapped. Will Arnett is Sweet Pete, who's Peter Pan. They call him Sweet Pete in the movie. Let's see. Oh, Dennis Haysbert is Zipper, who the guy from 24. President Palmer, right, from 24.
Yeah, and he was also on The Unit.
The Unit and Allstate.
On Allstate commercials.
Yeah.
And he almost always does the candlelight processional at Disney World. They have celebrities come in and do readings. Yeah. And Neil Patrick Harris does it a lot. Whoopi Goldberg does it a lot. And Dennis Haysbert that's who I saw do it the one year.
Sure. Neil Patrick Harris is in some hot water.
Yeah.
He can't seem to get out from under that cake thing from 10 years ago.
I know, right? I'm like, it was 11 years ago.
That's the bad thing about the internet is you get like a whole 10 years ago. Now you have, babies back then are now teenagers on the internet,
right? And
they're like, oh, how could this, whatever. It's like, I get it's bad, but it's like, we've been through this.
Yeah, it's like everybody was trying to out-edge the next guy, and it's like, and now we look back and we're like, yeah, that probably wasn't cool.
Yeah,
but
no one thinks that was good, but anyway, yeah. So, but you've got, J.K. Simmons, like we said, Akiva Schaffer actually does a lot of voices, and I liked, did you see when they were filming Rescue Rangers and they cut the last episode? That was Akiva in the director's chair.
That's what I was wondering. I was going to ask that,
Yeah, that was him. So the director actually was the director of those episodes. Rachel Bloom was in this movie? I didn't know.
She was?
Yeah.
I love Rachel Bloom.
I think she voiced Flounder. I was reading something.
Yeah, she voiced Flounder.
Oh, okay.
She voiced Chip's mom, the Stinson's boy. So the Simpsons, I'm a Simpsons guy.
Yeah.
They did the off-brand Simpsons. The bootleg one is...
Again, that's another very, that was a biting because Disney owns Simpsons now, right? And also they don't have those original shorts on. So I thought that was kind of a funny, kickback to the old cruddy animation on the Simpsons.
That's the thing that I really like with this movie is that not only are they actually doing a commentary and a satire and all these different brands of animation, they can get the rights to some of these because they own them, but also they own them. Like, they're going to be protective if anyone is, and they let them actually poke fun.
And that might be how they got some of these other ones on board. If they were like, look what we're doing to Peter Pan, look what we're doing to Flounder. Like, it's not everybody else is the butt of the joke, but not Disney.
Everyone's the butt of the joke, and that I think
There's no Mickey though.
Oh yeah, that's true.
You can't do that.
Iger was like smart enough to say we don't mess.
You
with
didn't see
Mickey.
any of, at least not that I noticed. You
No.
don't see any of the Fab Five.
There might have been like a hat or something, but there you don't see the Frankensteining of them. You're right, and I think that was a conscious decision. They must have been off limits. But the Simpsons, Darren, I'm glad you mentioned. That's really funny. The bootleg Simpsons almost looked like the Tracy Ullman version of the Simpsons. So that was a.
But
really
also, like if you're old enough to remember the Simpsons when they first hit and were peaking, like there was bootleg Simpsons stuff.
the merch,
everywhere.
like Rumbo shirts and stuff.
Yeah, there was so much bootleg Simpsons stuff. It was, you couldn't. Yeah, it was everywhere.
Yeah, definitely. So, and other claymation stuff. Rachel Bloom also voiced the insurance sheep, who was clearly like one of those Wallace and Gromit type sheeps.
Yeah.
Right. So you get the claymation, stop motion, all that stuff that we mentioned. Really good homage. Jim Cummings, who was the voice of Winnie the Pooh, actually did the voice of Pooh. Fat Cat. Is that the bad guy, Fat Cat? Or
Yeah, that's him. Yep.
Okay, so that's Jim Cummings. And then Darkwing Duck at the end, if you stayed all the funny credits and everything. Darkwing Duck is at the con saying, like, don't you want me? You want more of me. And they're actually working on a Darkwing Duck reboot. So that is kind of coming. I think that was a little wink and a nod, like, hey, don't.
It's kind of Jim coming.
Ooh.
Whoa.
Hey, now. Chris Parnell plays what kind of seemed like a made-up agent, Dave Bolinari.
Yeah.
Dale kept saying, oh, it's my agent. And then he'd be like, okay, Mom, I'll be home for dinner soon. And at the end, Dave Bolinari, after I think they said 8 years or whatever, actually calls and is like, oh, yeah, I got busy.
I think
like,
that's him
sorry,
at the beginning, too, when they're Chip or Dale is talking about their history, and they're on the phone, and somebody says, "How about we give you your own show?" I think that.
Did Dave Bolinari actually call him in the beginning? Okay.
I think so. I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, because Chris Parnell, you see him like because I was just like, one, he's looking older. Two, I was just like, oh, he was in the first Lonely Island video to break out.
Yeah.
Like he was in Lazy Sunday.
Lazy Sunday. That was the first viral video
From
on YouTube.
SNL.
No, on YouTube. I think that was the first viral video, like what they consider.
Really? There were other big videos before that. Because they brought in the Lonely Island guys because SNL was like, oh, crap, we're not creating viral content.
Right.
And so, but that was SNL's first, like, breakout viral thing.
I'm not saying the first YouTube video, but I was pretty sure Lazy Sunday was like in the history books, like what they consider with hitting a certain hundreds of millions or whatever. But anyway, you're right. That's a really nice touch with SNL and Lonely Island connection there. But yeah, so you've got tons of people. Yorma, who's the third Lonely Island, he is in this movie. So it is all the Lonely Island people are in it.
He plays Batman, doesn't he voice Batman? Really quickly?
Yeah, so that was one of the gags that made me laugh out loud too. I could not believe it. They did the Martha thing. But it was E.T. versus Batman. So they even made fun of E.T.
Well, that's funny, too, because it's Larry Fong doing the cinematography. He did the cinematography for Batman versus Superman. So
right?
It's similar.
It's so self-referential. I love that. Yeah, they did. It's definitely the BVS look to this little movie within a movie. And then E.T. is just like, let's be friends or whatever. I can't remember the quote. And then Batman's like,
that's what he says.
Oh, yeah, he says, forgive. Yeah. And Batman just looks at him and he goes, fine. It's just so because they're making fun of the whole Martha thing and all that. I think it's great. This movie has so many references, but the balance they strike. And speaking of DreamWorks, I really think they did a great job where kids are watching this movie. There's a lot of cartoons, there's a lot of action and fun things to look at, and then for the adults, like Shrek did, right? There's all the stuff that went over their head. There's a lot of ballsy stuff other than just the IP in this movie. So Monty is basically like a drug addict with cheese.
He's addicted to cheese.
So they made it so that stinky cheese is like doing drugs. Yeah, and he couldn't get off the stuff, and he was going. Oh, Main Street. That was another one that had me laughing out loud. I mean, Main Street, which was clearly like the Disney World Main Street. Right. I mean, they go to Main Street and they point out and they go, yeah, this whole place, like they don't show the gate to the Disney World or the castle, but it's Main Street.
It's Main Street.
It is Main Street. And they go, this is just a cover up for illicit operations. Like they're like, that person does so-and-so. This person is, I mean, the fact that they just went to Main Street right out of Disney World and pointed out how all these people are criminals. Yeah. That is gutsy. That is seriously, Disney's never done this with their own IP. I really thought that was a funny moment. Oh, and Muppets, that's the other one. I was trying to think of all the different animation and styles they goofed on. Muppet fights. That was what it was. One of the covers at Main Street, like the kid selling balloons or something. He goes Muppet fights, and they go to the Muppet who's running the butcher or the cheese shop.
Bjornsson, the cheesemonger, right?
Bjornsson, yeah.
Was he CGI or was he an actual Muppet? I couldn't tell, because the CGI was so good.
I think he was live action. So this movie, I think they filmed, they said 23 days of the live action stuff. And the rest, during the pandemic, the great thing was once they had all the live action, everyone could work from home. Akiva and his editor, they were able to set up shop and production and Disney was like, okay, you can't come into the office or whatever. And they're like, we've got everything we need. Let's keep working on this movie. Yeah. And so they were like, because they're bored, they want to work on it, right? Mm-hmm. And so they were able to go, and the animation stuff had been done. They had the live action, so they kept editing it. And they did a lot of live action hybrid stuff. And I think the Muppets were one of them. Anytime you see a Muppet, I think that's actually puppetry. And I really like the design of that guy. He looked a lot like a Muppet type, a Sesame Street type. And I like how he had the eyebrow. He looked all friendly, and they're like, we're looking for stinky cheese, and the eyebrow caves down in it. Like, he immediately becomes an evil character. Yeah, are you cops? No. And then you see it's an opium den. Is what the cheese is. You see all these rats and mice that are eating cheese, and one's feeding. There's someone feeding a mouse, and they're like more, and the other person is following the trail, the stink trail, and the lines, and lifting a lot of really funny stuff. But adults are the only ones that are going to get that. The kids aren't going, oh, an opium den, right? So I think
my kids would have known about drugs.
Well, they are in their 40s, right, Tom?
Yeah.
No. But I think that's what's great is that this is the type of movie where the kids have a lot to enjoy, the adults have a lot to appreciate, and certainly the references with stuff they grew up to. But it's not a movie where you're going to have to answer a bunch of questions.
Yeah.
So if you have young kids, that stuff I say opium den. They never say that, but we know what they're kind of simulating. Kids are never going to have to sit there and be like, oh my gosh, are they there doing illegal drugs? You know what I mean? They're like, oh, mice like cheese, and they're following the stink. It's funny, right? So I think they did a really good job, the writers and Akiva, with balancing things so that it's good for kids. This is very much a movie kids can watch without a lot of questions. But adults are going to be there, just like with Shrek. I cannot believe they said some of this stuff in a kids movie. And so I really enjoyed it. I hope, my main takeaway from this movie and hope is that Disney sees the attention it's getting online, and they let them start taking more risks. And it's not like saying everything that happens in this movie is canon, right? It's not like Peter Pan now is this evil.
Yeah.
They can take their IP and they can goof on it, and it can exist in its own world off to the side, and they never have to address it, and they can still make a Peter Pan movie or whatever. I hope that they let them take some of their IP and do more stuff like this and let them live on their own, like a one-shot kind of comic.
Yeah.
Because there's so many fun stories to tell that we don't really get adult Disney stories, and they could do it with this.
Yeah.
And it kind of reminds me of WB with their Harley Quinn show, which is a very crude, very adult show.
Right.
But it's you still have Harley Quinn in the animated series, who isn't as bad. You can take a character and turn them.
I feel like who's kind of led the way with this sort of stuff is Archie Comics.
Oh, okay, yeah.
If you look at Archie Comics, a lot of what they do these days is the reimagining of the Archie characters, and they'll take them and they're like, what if they were in space, or what if they were pirates, or they really like to use the template of Archie, but plug it into different genres and play with it.
And it doesn't have to affect regular Archie.
Yeah.
You're not going back and looking oh my God, they were really
right. They're still
bank
putting
robbers
out
and that.
They're still putting out the other stuff too, but they like to play with it a lot.
Yeah, that's smart. I really hope Disney takes note of that. And this movie, it's hard because it's streaming, right? So we don't have box office numbers. They didn't do the dual release. They're only internally going to know with their streams. But if it's based on the internet and the people talking and sharing the stuff, whether it was Twitter or Facebook, I saw people posting Ugly Sonic all over, which, part of me is like, God, I wish they could just wait because it's a funny gag.
Yeah.
But this day and age, with people and their limited attention spans, I guess I'm the outlier there. I guess you do need people posting Ugly Sonic. Or else
to pull them in that wouldn't have watched a Chip and Dale movie otherwise.
Right, exactly. So, it was cool. I think it was funny. I appreciated the references, and maybe we'll get some more from this team.
Yeah, overall, I enjoyed it. I thought it was cute. I just thought it could have been, if it had been funnier, it would have really leveled it up.
Yeah, I think the the gags were the funny, right? Like, so, and Andy Samberg just, it's funny because I kind of criticize some other movies on people just being themselves and not having actual jokes.
Right.
And in this movie, because I love Andy Samberg. And,
I
enjoy John Mullaney. Like, them just doing what they do to me was funny and without actually saying jokes, but I get what you mean.
Yeah. They just should have punched it up.
Yeah. Darin, I know that you kind of went into this not really knowing what to expect, and I told you to watch it. It's real funny, and you kind of watched it and came on last minute. But did it meet your expectations, or what were you kind of thinking as you watched this thing?
Well, a couple of thoughts is I like what you said about it being the successor to Roger Rabbit, because if you're thinking about other live-action animated hybrids like Mary Poppins or Bedknobs and Broomsticks or Cool World or whatever the Bakshi movie is, they don't really do the same Who Framed Roger Rabbit thing where the cartoon characters are actual actors. And so that really, as a successor to Roger Rabbit, that makes sense. If you're, a lot of people are comparing it to Roger Rabbit, and I think as far as that goes, that's probably as deep as the comparison as I would make it, because Roger Rabbit's obviously a game changer. It's one of my favorite movies. The thing with that movie is they started it, obviously they had the idea that they wanted to do the animation and mix everything. And there's the groundbreaking animation that Zemeckis looked at and said, oh, I can't do 3D turns on these characters. I can't do rack focuses. I'm going to do it because I'm Robert Zemeckis. You know, that kind of groundbreaking stuff. But what they did with Roger Rabbit that I'm impressed with is they started it as, and they really paid attention to it as a Raymond Chandler-esque mystery. And they made that the focal point. So as a screenplay, it's beautifully structured. You could have made this in the 30s or 40s, had Howard Hawks do it, and it would have worked as a mystery, as a film noir. But then you added all the cartoon stuff, and that kind of brought it to the next level. So I don't think Chip and Dale reaches that level, because it's not, like I was mentioning, the plot's just kind of threadbare to kind of hang all these jokes on. Sure. Whereas Roger Rabbit is a full-on,
noir.
Film noir.
The mystery works.
Yeah, it works beautifully, and it just has all these other gags to hang it on. And so I think it is a successor, but it doesn't quite reach the levels of that because they're more interested in the jokes than telling it all. And the story's fine. I mean, it's just very predictable. You know how they're going to get back together, Chip. It's you know, you're going to see Chip kind of, his cynicism is going to melt away, and they're going to have fun, and they're going to kind of recapture that old magic.
It is kind of a gag delivery vehicle.
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
they don't reinvent the wheel with it. So I completely agree.
That's the point. The thing that I thought was really interesting, and you're seeing it get a lot of play negatively, is, you know, you go back to the Bobby Driscoll story, voicing Peter Pan, and how the child star, and he broke out, and in 1950 he won an Academy Award, juvenile award for a couple of movies, The Window or something like that. And then his star faded. I think when Howard Hawks took over RKO, which basically meant that he took over Disney, he ousted Bobby Driscoll, didn't like child actors, kind of kicked him out. And so Driscoll, he moved out at 16, went to New York, tried to be an actor, and then didn't really go anywhere, came back and got caught up in drugs, and became friends with Andy Warhol, kind of like a sideshow attraction, because Warhol liked that kind of stuff. And then he ended up, two kids found him in an abandoned apartment building. He was in a hammock, and he was surrounded by beer bottles, and he'd done so much heroin that his arteries just hardened up, and he died from that. I thought it was interesting, and I didn't expect it at all from this movie, is how they brought up, when you're a Disney star, especially because Chip and Dale, that's the whole point. You know, when Dale tries to do is it Dale or is it Chip that tries to break away, and he does it's Double O Dale, so it's Dale that does it. And Chip is like, you do this, they're going to cancel us. And that's what happens in their star. And obviously Chip goes and becomes an insurance agent, stuff like that. But the fact that they make a point about how Disney stars, and again, it's because they're cartoons that I don't think it hits as hard. Disney stars are burning so bright that when they outlive their usefulness, they're cut off and they become has-beens, or, the bootleg. He becomes a bootlegger. You know what I mean?
It's the same thing. You're right. The story, not just with Peter Pan, but was it Snow White? They blacklisted her. You know that story between the voice actor of Snow White?
No, I don't.
Disney did not want any actors associated with their animation back in the early days. So it was just you weren't famous for voicing Snow White. You made very, very minimal amount of money. You couldn't go out and say that you were the voice of Snow White and all this. And so she was kind of paid a minimal amount, I think had a non-compete, couldn't go out and really market whatever. And so like they were making all this money and it was so famous.
Right.
It's a huge story. And so I think that what Darin's touching on is that story and the Peter Pan and all these, but they're doing it from the perspective of being an animated character and especially a child animated actor and what happens when you're an adult and outgrow that. But there's a lot of parallels in the real world and especially revolving around Disney. So it is poignant.
And that's the stuff that I couldn't believe that they had this, I think again, because it's a cartoon, they're able to kind of dive deep into that stuff without it being too dark.
Yeah.
But the way that they did that, obviously you have like the in the Uncanny Valley, which I thought was really clever, how they have all like where they meet the Beowulf Seth Rogen character.
Which is like nice homage to Zemeckis, because he's very much like the Polar Express eyes. Do they even call him Polar Express eyes?
They say he's got Polar Express
eyes. So
eyes.
that's Zemeckis, Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Nice callback.
So having the Cats character show up and doing the Shrek thing where you literally see the Shrek face melt, again, it cuts and it turns them into porta potties.
Yeah, Cats.
Like
the musical Cats were
that was a good one. Another one we didn't mention is the Paula Abdul and MC Scat Cat.
From the music video. Yeah.
Very clever. So a lot of like me laughing at it was pointing. Like my wife and my daughter were like, we were just having fun watching you point at the screen and laugh. Like when you see Blaster from Transformers show up at the beginning.
Yeah, I'm a Transformers guy. Yeah.
Yeah, I especially laughed during the Seth Rogen part where Mantis and Bob come in and they're all doing the laugh. I laughed so hard. I just thought it was interesting that I laughed more and I enjoyed the in-jokes more, which I complain about on Twitter. I complained just recently, like, how they have, like, the Captain Carter character in Multiverse say, I could do this all day, or how they have Norman Osborn say, I'm a bit of a scientist myself, or I think there's even a rumor that Michael Keaton in the new Flash movie says, do you want to get nuts? Let's get nuts.
Right.
I wrote, it's like, is this what like, why are we quoting, like, literal dialogue from other movies? And so I complain about that, but then I'm a giant raging hypocrite because of stuff like Seth Rogen. I got a big kick out of that stuff. So I don't know. I think it's like the balance that they're trying to do.
It's the screenwriting equivalent of a dick joke. Like dick jokes are lazy, but that doesn't mean some of them aren't funny. There can be really smart dick jokes, but more often than not, a dick joke is just laugh because I said dick
or poop humor.
Yeah.
It's that. It's like farting. If it's part of the script in a way to where it's some kind of clever callback, and I can't think off the top of my head, but if it's just a character for 20 seconds farting,
funny poop joke. Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs.
That's right. What was it? I remember
where the monkey's eating the chocolate ice cream, and they're like, "That's not chocolate ice cream." I was like, I even at the time, because my kids were even like, "Oh my god, Dad laughed at an actual poop joke," and I was like, "Well, that one was funny."
Because it's more than just a fart for 20 seconds. Where you're like, "Hey, that's not funny." Any character can make a fart noise,
right?
And it's like, kids laugh at it because they're kids, but that's stupid. It's not.
Right.
When you make it part of the script. So I think it is the balance, like you said, Darin. Again, it also comes to the dedication and the heart that goes into it, and these people love animation, and so you're not doing it. It's different when you say, hey, we own these IP, put them in our movie, figure out how to use them, go. When this movie's like, hey, let's write a movie about all the characters we love, and let's make it work in the story. And the Comic-Con through line was a huge way to connect them all. Why would all these characters be together? Comic-Con.
Yeah. But overall, I mean, it's a cute movie. It's on streaming if you have Disney Plus, and statistically speaking, you probably do. It's definitely worth your time.
I watched it a second time in preparation. I loved it even more the second time. So I think it's one that will grow on repeat viewings.
Yeah. So, anyway, I guess that's it for this one. We'll go around the abbreviated table, and people can say where to find them.
Sure. This is Kevin. Follow me on Twitter at KevinRBrackett, and also listen to the other podcast I do, The Games We Love, where we just talk about different current video games and also some nostalgic ones. And
Darin, where can they find you?
On Twitter, you can find me at DW Lundberg. Again, that's NostalgiaCast is my handle there, but we just talk about movies, and like Kevin was talking about, and Kevin, you guessed it on our Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles episode. You invited yourself on, which I like that.
I figured I had to pay you back and get you on our show.
Yeah, so that was great. Like I loved, a lot of times I keep talking to my wife about when I started NostalgiaCast, and we're obviously not the greatest and most popular thing, but all the guests that we have, I can't believe that we've had on so many people. And Kevin was one of those who's like, I dreamed about having him on because obviously we chatted about it. And then you coming on and saying, well, could I come on and do Ninja Turtles? It's not like I'm going to go, well, I have to invite you, that kind of thing. So I love that. So we're able to have conversations. So a bunch of episodes. Love to have Tom on it sometime.
Sure. Give me a title.
Yeah. So I don't know if you do a lot of podcast appearances, because I know Kevin does a lot of those.
Yeah, I don't tend to get asked.
Well, there you go. You're going to get asked this next when we start up. But yeah, you can find me on at DW Lundberg, and I, like Kevin says, I'm angry a lot of the time, so it's just me complaining. But I'll turn around and praise something that I.
In that case, we'll either get along really well or really poorly.
Yeah,
I'm working on melting his heart of ice, so we'll see how it goes.
Which one of us?
Well, yes.
Yeah. So,
good luck.
Yeah, no kidding. And you can find me on Twitter at Roger Kubert or on Facebook at facebook.com/Tom O'Keefe. You can find the show online at facebook.com/Real Spoilers. And of course, don't forget our Patreon. So anyway, that's it for this one. Thanks for tuning in. And until next time, Doom is a tune.
Get ready for a spoiler. Won't say it twice, 'cause we already